This is the 5th of 8 video revision sessions for the theory paper, which will help you with your mock on the afternoon of Friday the 2nd of February 2018 and your real exam on the morning of Monday the 18th of June 2018. This video is the first video about the workplace, and it covers effective workplace design, legislation, consequences of neglecting workplace design and health and safety, modern developments in work practices, and environmentally friendly. So, effective workplace design. In an office situation, the equipment, furniture, and the machinery that workers use should be designed so that the workers can do their job as effectively as possible. Ergonomics is the fitting of people who do a task to the equipment they use to carry out that task. So, for example, ergonomically designed chairs will fit the human body. Ergonomic desks will be designed to fit the human body. So, effective workplace design. What does it cover? Well, it covers seats first of all. So these seats should be adjustable in height. They should have backrests that are adjustable and tiltable. A tiltable seat. Removable armrests. A 5-caster base. So if you think about the seats, they're very similar to the chairs that you have in an ICT room. They're certainly the same as what your teacher has in the ICT room. 5-caster base, removable armrests, tiltable seat, backrest that is adjustable and tiltable, and an adjustable height. It makes it more comfortable to sit at the desk for a long period of time. It means that you don't get aches and pains in your body. So desks as well. There should be enough space for everything that is needed at your desk. There should be enough leg space so that you don't feel cramped. It should have an adjustable height so that you can work at a height that is best fit for your body. In addition to the office furniture, employers must also provide tiltable screens. So again, in the ICT room we've got screens which are tiltable and adjustable, height adjustable, and they'll move backwards and forwards. It means that you can work at the most comfortable position for you. Anti-glare screen filters, which means that you don't get the glare off the sunlight so that you don't affect your eyes and it becomes difficult to work for long periods of time looking at the screen. Foot supports, which should elevate your feet slightly, making it more comfortable again to sit at a computer for a bit longer. You have to make sure that the lighting is suitable in the office, so again it doesn't affect your eyes. You should plan work so that frequent breaks can be taken, even if that's just a 5-minute break to the water cooler or to go and make a cup of tea. These breaks make it more comfortable again to work for long periods of time at a computer. Employers also need to pay for eye tests. So if you work at a computer for a sustained period of time, then your employer must pay for eye tests for you. And there's 2 laws that cover what employers must do, and these laws are called the Health and Safety at Work Act, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and the Display Screen Regulations. So, legislation. First of all, we're going to look at the Health and Safety at Work Act. And the main point from this legislation is that the employer must make sure that the workplace is safe for their employees to work in. And the Act requires such things as safe entry and exit into and out of the buildings. There must be enough toilets provided and facilities for getting drinks for the employees. There must be proper maintenance of equipment so that it's all safe Employees must be given training about health and safety. Information displayed about health and safety, so that means there might be health and safety posters up around the building, or there might be health and safety information on display screens around the building, and you might have actually seen some of these posters outside of the site team's office in and around school. And the next legislation is the display screen regulations, and these regulations have been passed because so many people now spend a lot of their working lives in front of a computer screen, and so this legislation has been brought in to protect employees. And it says the employee must also take responsibility for their health and safety at work, and this means that they must behave in a way that does not affect the health and safety of others. So, consequences of neglecting effective workplace design and health and safety. Pause the video now and try to list as many consequences that you can think of that are linked to neglecting effective workplace design and health and safety in a business. So, neglecting effective workplace design and health and safety will mean there's more accidents in your workplace. More accidents means that people will have more time off work, and that has a knock-on effect that someone else might be needed to fill in the job of the person who's off or having the time off because they're ill or recovering, and that costs the business money. If the injury is serious, then compensation might need to be paid out to that employee. It also might mean that in the future less work is done. There might be cases of RSI. RSI stands for repetitive strain injury. This is something that we've had a look at in class before. Basically it means doing the same task over and over and over again without having a good amount of time to have a rest. So that might be constant clicking of the mouse, which would affect your hands and your wrists. That's repetitive strain on your hand, and so you would have repetitive strain injury. It might be constantly typing on a keyboard, again with no breaks. That would cause repetitive strain injury, would mean that people would have time off work. The business might get a bad reputation, which means that it's harder to recruit people. If you knew that somewhere that you were applying to for a job had poor health and safety, you'd probably think twice about applying for a job there. And of course, eye strain, headaches, and possible circulation problems. Now, as we keep saying, there's no evidence to suggest that long periods of time in front of a computer damages your eyes. However, it does provide you with eye strain, and eye strain means that you might get headaches, and then of course you might need to have time off work for that as well. So, some more modern developments in work practices. So most recently, businesses have worked slightly different, and that's just to reflect the changes in the way that business now is run and how people work within a business. So this section is going to look at those different developments in the work practice. And one of them is called hotdesking. Now this is where an employee is not given a workstation or a desk of their own. Instead, they share desks and they share equipment as they need it. So this works when employees do not spend all of their working day in the office. Not all businesses can use hotdesking, and it really depends on what work is being carried out within that office. So, hotdesking works when the work being done is carried out in different places. So for example, you might be out and about in the van, and then you might come back to the office, and only when you come back to the office do you need a computer. That's when hotdesking could work quite well. The employee has the right technology, so hotdesking won't work if the employee doesn't have the correct technology. Hotdesking won't work if there isn't enough desks within that environment. If you have 20 people and they all need a desk but you've only got 10, well, it's not going to work. And all the shared equipment is maintained properly. It's really important that that equipment is maintained so that when somebody sits down at a computer, it's going to work. Hotdesking does not work when employees need to be found easily, because if you don't have your own workstation, somebody's going to have to come and look for you. It might be that you're on the other side of the office, so it doesn't work if employees need to be found easily. It doesn't work if there are not enough desks for employees to do their job properly. It doesn't work if different technology and equipment is needed for different employees. It really works best where you may occasionally use a computer, or if you don't need to use a computer, then you can go and sit at a desk where there isn't a computer. That's when hotdesking works the best. The next one is teleconferencing. So teleconferencing is a system of having this telephone conversation with more than one person. It means that everybody can chip in with their own ideas. It also is a real benefit of everybody not having to get together. For example, we have lots of global businesses at the moment, which means that there might be somebody working in Hong Kong and somebody else working for the same business in London and somebody else working for the same business in America. And so teleconferencing means that everybody doesn't have to travel to have a meeting. It's a system of having a telephone conversation with everybody involved. Similar, but using video, is video conferencing, and this is where participants are able to actually see each other too, and again relieves the need for travelling to the same area to have a meeting. Benefits of these technologies: well, money is saved as people don't have to travel to meetings, as I've just said, and it also provides a quick, inexpensive way of communicating with the office. Drawbacks of these technologies are that it can be difficult with large numbers of people. If you're on the telephone with 10, 20 different people and everyone wants to say, then it can be really difficult to understand who was saying what. Eye contact and reading body language is not easy. It's impossible if it's just a telephone conversation, and it's not easy if you're just watching someone through a camera. And it requires expensive equipment initially. If you have to buy iPads or computers with cameras, then that's going to be very costly in the first instance. After that, it's quite inexpensive. You know that Skype, I'm sure, doesn't cost anything, but in order to set up the video conferencing in the first place, it could require expensive equipment initially. Now in the exam you're not allowed to say Skype, but that's what we mean by video conferencing, with a number of different people all watching and having that conversation at the same time. More modern developments in work practices: we can have flexible working. So nowadays people who work in an office don't always work Monday to Friday from 9 until 5. This was seen as the norm not so long ago. Now flexible working means the way people are actually employed is changing, and you need to know what the following terms mean. So we're going to have a look at these terms. But basically home and teleworking, which basically means that you're working from home. So sometimes it's called teleworking. It's a different word to teleconferencing, so don't get it mixed up. But in the exam, if it talks about teleworking, it means working from home. Flexi time: this is when an employee has some core hours and then organise the rest of their hours as they wish. So it might be that they have to work 12 hours. How they work those 12 hours is up to them, but they need to make sure that they are working those hours. Job sharing: and this is where two people split the work of one person and they share that job. This is becoming more effective, particularly with perhaps ladies who have gone off on maternity leave. They've come back and they've decided that they'd rather not come back full time. They'd rather spend half of their time at work and half of their time with their children, and so job sharing can mean that it can accommodate that request. And seasonal work: so this might be just summer work, it might be Christmas work. In the past we've discussed this in class, where we've talked about how the Royal Mail take on a lot of temporary seasonal staff around about the Christmas period, particularly as there's an increase in parcels and letters around about that time. And shift work. Sometimes you might work day shifts, sometimes you might work night shifts, sometimes you might work 4 nights on and then have 4 days off to recover, or something along those lines. And some jobs need 24-hour workers. Some jobs work best where there's always somebody doing that job. And so that means that people unfortunately do have to work during the day, and somebody else will come in at a night time to take over, and they have to work unfortunately during the night, and then in the morning somebody else will take over from them. So, advantages of working from home is that there's no time wasted getting to work. It's much more environmentally friendly as there's no travelling involved. There may be fewer distractions than if you were working in an open plan office. It's really important that if you're mentioning that in an exam, don't just say there's fewer distractions. You need to explain it fully. So maybe fewer distractions than in an open plan office. And you can fit around other commitments such as childcare. So it might be that you stop work in order to take your child to school for 9 o'clock in the morning. You come back home and you continue your work. It gets to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you stop your work, you go and pick your child up from school, and when you come back to the house, perhaps you start working again at about 4 o'clock. So it means you can be a little bit more flexible if you're working from home. Disadvantages of working from home is that some people might feel isolated. It's maybe more enjoyable to go to work and have that social aspect of being able to talk to other people, whereas if you're working at home, you might be on your own. There can be distractions at home as well, so you might feel that it's easier to become distracted at home than being in an office where you know you're going to be watched and people are making sure that you're doing your work. It can be hard to do work where you live. People see it as a place where they relax, not somewhere where they work, so it could be harder in order to be more productive at home. And it's easy to lose touch with what's happening in the business. If you're working from home and just communicating with somebody in the office, it can be difficult to lose touch with what's happening in the business and in the office. So the next section is environmentally friendly and environmentally friendly practices. Pause the video now and try to name as many ways a business can be environmentally friendly. So here's a few ways in which a business can be environmentally friendly. First of all, they can consider what needs to be printed and can those things be emailed out instead. That obviously saves paper and it's more environmentally friendly. Businesses can consider printing on both sides of the page. We do this in school. It reduces the amount of waste paper that we have. It also means that we spend a lot less on paper and it's more environmentally friendly. And we can use recycled paper. Recycled paper, of course, is environmentally friendly because it means that we're not cutting down new trees in order to produce that paper. Businesses can use cartridges that can be refilled, which means that the plastic doesn't get thrown away. Businesses can recycle their old ink cartridges, which means that that plastic is turned into new ink cartridges or maybe other plastic items. Businesses can turn off equipment overnight, which means that it's not using electricity. Businesses can turn off computers not in use. Businesses can use a thermostat to control the heating. So rather than having the heating blasting all day, then they can use a thermostat to be able to control the heating so that maybe it only turns on when it's lower than 16 degrees. So in the old school we had air conditioning, and this uses a lot of electricity. Certainly some of our old classrooms, our very small classrooms, the computer rooms became hot very quickly, so you had to turn the air conditioning on first thing in the morning, and you would leave it on all day, and that would be very, very environmentally unfriendly, and it would cost the school a lot of money in terms of electricity. So what we're doing now is we replace air conditioning with natural ventilation. Natural ventilation perhaps means vents, or it means windows. And so windows that open and help to circulate the warm air out of the classroom or the office is seen as being a lot more environmentally friendly than air conditioning. So that's something else that a business can do, and it'll also allow you to remember that in an exam question, because that's exactly what we did between the old school building and the new school building that we're in now. Something else that we use in school now as well is we use low energy light bulbs, and these low energy light bulbs use a lot less electricity, and so they're more environmentally friendly, and of course they also save the school a lot in electricity bills, whereas the old school we always used the older type of energy bulbs, and they were a lot less energy efficient, and they were a lot more costly in terms of the amount of electricity that was used. Something else that a business can look at is for deliveries using low energy vehicles that perhaps use less petrol or diesel and therefore are more environmentally friendly. If they do have company cars, then company cars that have smaller engines which are more environmentally friendly and perhaps more efficient to run. And something else that businesses are doing to be seen as being environmentally friendly is encouraging car sharing. I'm sure you've seen the TV program, the comedy show Car Share, very similar to that, where maybe 2 or 3 employees who live close to each other share a car ride in, maybe they share the petrol costs, but from a business point of view it means that instead of 3 people driving cars in, 1 person drives a car in and 3 people share, which is more environmentally friendly. In the exam, it's really important that you only mention one form of recycling. Only one form of recycling will actually be accepted. So don't say recycling paper and recycling cartridges. It's really important that you only mention that once. But as you can see, there's lots of different examples on your screen. So finally, we're going to have a look at problems with environmentally friendly practices. So some of the problems are that some changes may mean spending quite a lot of money initially. So replacing all your light bulbs with energy efficient light bulbs is an expensive process if you're going to have to replace 200 light bulbs. So some of these changes are quite expensive initially. It can require a lot more effort, at least initially, to be able to set up emailing documents rather than just printing them off and sending them around the office. Removing air conditioning can cause resentment because people are used to just turning it on when they want the room to be cooled down, whereas opening a window, it might take a little bit longer for the room to cool down. So that could cause a little bit of resentment with the people who work at your business. Finally, some employees might feel that it's not up to the employer, it's not up to the business or the boss to suggest how they might get to work. So that's looking at the whole car sharing thing. Is it up to the employer to suggest that employees should actually try and car share rather than bringing their own car to the office? Some employees will feel that it's not up to the employer to suggest that.